Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? My name is Attorney Charles Zavala, your immigration lawyer. We are located here in beautiful Houston, Texas, but we can help you no matter where you are in the USA or even if you're abroad, as long as it has to do with U.S. immigration. The purpose of this video is I am going to explain some mistakes that a lot of people make sometimes when they're applying for a green card through marriage. And some of these things are just kind of proofreading things or making sure you do it right, because anytime you apply to get a green card via marriage, it's a lot of applications you have to file with USCIS, including the I-130, I-485, I-765, I-864, I-131. There's a lot of things you have to file, and if you do them incorrectly, they could reject it, it could delay your processing, and it could kind of create a lot of a pain in the butt. So if you watch this video, we're going to address some of the common mistakes people make. And remember, if you are trying to apply for your green card through marriage, or if you're thinking about doing it, please give us a call. We handle a lot of these cases every year. We have a high approval and successful rate, and we're more than happy to help you get you across the finish line. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. So anytime you're going to be applying for a government benefit through immigration, in this example we're talking about getting a green card through marriage, you're going to have to file forms, right? And a lot of people sometimes will call me and say, oh, okay, well, I married a citizen, how do I get my green card, what do I file? Well, the thing is, you're not just going to file one, you're going to have to file multiple forms. And I'm going to be reading the list, but the first one you have to file is what's called an I-130. And immigration forms are all going to have a number and then a letter and then a number, right? So if this sounds a little confusing, I'm sorry. It's kind of like your taxes. Taxes are filed on form this, form this. Same with immigration, okay? So the first thing you're going to have to file is what's called an I-130. You're also going to have to file an I-485, I-765, I-131, I-864. So I'm explaining you briefly what those all are. The I-130 is what's called a petition for alien relative. Ultimately, that is to establish if you're trying to get a green card through marriage. This I-130 is going to establish that you are married and it's a real bona fide relationship. That is an absolute must. You have to send the I-130. If you don't send the I-130, you're not getting a green card via marriage. 2 is the I-485. Now, this is the actual application where you are applying to what's called adjust your status or change your status to that of a green card holder. It's pretty lengthy. I think it's less than 30 pages, but they're going to ask you a lot of information, right? So that's another form you absolutely have to submit. If you don't submit that, next you're going to have the I-864. This is called an affidavit of support. So if you're trying to get your green card through marriage or through family, you have to show that whoever is your petitioner makes enough money over the federal poverty guideline, right? And it's usually 125%. And you can go online, you can see what these numbers are, but you do have to show that you make that much. And if you do not, for whatever reason, sometimes we have clients who are very young, who are still in school, who don't make that much money, it is 100% okay to get what's called a co-sponsor, someone who's willing to help you be the sponsor. That can be a resident or that can be a citizen. So that's important to know, but that is also 100% necessary to file when you file for your green card. The I-765, this is what's called the work permit or employment authorization document. This is 100%, well, it's not necessary for you to file this, but I would say you 100% should file this. Because the reality is this, let's pretend it's today. Let's pretend today's January 1st. If you apply for your green card and you submit all this paperwork in January 1st, it may take approximately a year until you get your green card, right? If everything goes well. But what are you supposed to do until then, right? You're just supposed to sit there not working? That's tough. It's tough to raise a family. It's tough to have a life without that. So that's why we will file the I-765, which is employment authorization document. And the good thing about that is you should receive your EAD card much sooner than your residency. We've had some clients receive it within 2 to 3 months, sometimes even 4 months. So then you're allowed to work, while you're waiting for your green card. 100% necessary. And then there is something called the I-131 travel document or advanced parole. This is if you think it's necessary for you to travel while your application is pending, because USCIS has this dumb rule that if you file for your green card inside the USA and then you leave the country, they're going to deem that you abandoned your case, which isn't always true. Sometimes people have to leave for multiple reasons. So if that's the case, you should file what's called an I-131 travel document, so the government gives you permission to leave without abandoning your case. Okay, so these are important that you send these. You look through this. There's a lot of questions on it. I know it's kind of a pain, but it's important that you answer these to the best of your abilities. And remember, if you look at this and say, look, this is way overwhelming, that's why we're here for. You know, we handle a lot of these cases. Part of what we do is just take the stress away from you. Just like when you hire your tax accountant, you pay them so that they can deal with all the BS, right? It's kind of what we're doing here. So that's important. So make sure you need to submit all those forms. Okay, a second mistake we see is people failing to prove that it's what's called a bona fide relationship, right? Because you have to show that it is a real marriage and that you're not just getting into this marriage for immigration purposes. And remember, USCIS has a division. They have officers who this is their job, to try to sniff out if it's a real relationship or not. And the reason why this happens, because yes, I mean, a lot of people want to come to the USA. Because of that, there's a lot of fraud. So a lot of people will say they're married or pretend to get married, but not actually live a real life together. So it's going to be on us to prove that it's a real relationship, right? So you should send your marriage certificate. You should have photos. You should have letters from friends and family. If you guys live together, show proof that you live together. Are you guys on each other's taxes? Are you guys on each other's insurance? Do things married couples do, because ultimately we have to convince immigration that it is legit. If you just have a marriage certificate, that's not going to be enough. They may send what's called a request for evidence, because they're going to say, look, a marriage certificate, while it is an indication of a marriage, you know, there's a lot of people who get married who actually don't live together or anything along those lines. So that's very important. And remember, if you don't get that I-130 approved, or you don't prove that it's a bona fide relationship, you ain't going nowhere. Okay, so that's a very important thing to be, to consider when you're getting that evidence together. Third common mistake we see is people who don't meet the financial sponsorship requirement. So the rules say that you have to make, for example, let's say this is my spouse, Giraffe. I'm a U.S. citizen. If I'm applying for Giraffe's green card, I have to show that I make at least 125% of the federal poverty guideline. This is a number that you can go online to find out how much it is. Honestly, it's not very much, and it goes based on how many people you live in the household. But you're going to have to show that you make, and remember, when I say you, I don't mean the person applying for the green card. I mean the U.S. citizen or the resident holder. The person who's petitioning for them has to show that they make enough money to support their spouse. If they don't, and that's okay, because we have clients who are in students, you can get what's called a co-sponsor. It can be a friend, it can be a family, it can be anybody, as long as they have immigration. As long as they're citizen and they're resident. Okay, but the question is going to be, well, like, how do I prove this, right? I mean, how do we know if I make over the guidelines? The government's going to ask to see your tax returns, and they're going to ask to see your W-2s or your 1099s, something where you can show pay stubs to show that you make that money. Okay, that is a very, very important thing to do. And if you don't meet that financial requirement, you can find somebody to be your co-sponsor. It's okay. So let me see here. Another mistake people make, and this is number 4, is admissibility issues, right? So if you have a criminal record, or if you have been in the USA before and you were deported, or you were in the USA and you left when you didn't have permission, you absolutely need to talk to an immigration lawyer. I always tell people this: look, if this is when you apply for your green card, it's probably going to be the biggest investment of your life. And what I mean by that is, it's very rare that there will be another situation in your life where your life changes as much. Because once you're a resident, you can now live here in the U.S. You can work in the USA. Eventually, you can become a citizen. So it's a pretty big life investment. So I always tell people, if you're going to go through this step, it's worth at least consulting with an immigration lawyer to make sure you're doing it the right way and there's going to be no issue. Because if you do have a criminal record, or if you do have what's called inadmissibility issues because you were deported or you were in immigration court, these are definitely things to consider, because you don't want to pay all this money, get to the interview, and then they notice that you're inadmissible and they reject you. And it can happen, right? So we need to be careful about that. This last thing I've been noticing more. So we are in the year, 2025. Normally, if you get married and you're trying to apply for your green card through marriage, what will happen is this. If you establish that it's a bona fide relationship, they can go ahead and approve you for the green card status. But I would say now that the new Trump administration is in power, they have been issuing out more interview notices. And what I mean by this is this. Pretend me and Giraffe, we're married. Usually, if we submit all our paperwork and it's good and the government believes us, they can go ahead and approve us without an interview. But more recently, we've been seeing that they've been scheduling interviews. So what that means is me and Giraffe have to show up to an interview at a USCIS office, and they're going to go through our applications. Ultimately, what they're going to do is they're going to make sure what we submitted is true, we are who we say we are, and we are actually in a relationship. And this can be funny because, I've seen it multiple ways. I've seen it where one of my clients, we walk into the interview, they look at them and they say, all right, no problem. I see you guys are married, you guys have kids together, there's no question here, boom. Takes less than 10 minutes, we're out. I've been in other situations where the officer says, okay, he starts to ask some of the couple the questions, and they'll give them a piece of paper and say, write down what your husband's favorite movie is, or things along those lines, or what is the name of your wife's mother. The little things like that where they're trying to establish, is this a real relationship? Do they actually really know about each other, or is it a little e? So those are the main mistakes I see when people are trying to apply for a green card. These are all things that are very preventable. Like we say in our office, obviously I'm not trying to push our services, but part of the benefit when hiring a professional who does this is you don't have to worry about this. We know exactly what we need to do. We know exactly what we need to prove, and we make a great application and package, and we give it to USCIS with a pretty little bow on it, and we have a high successful approval rate, right? So these are definitely things you have to consider whenever you're applying for a green card through marriage, or if you're applying a green card through a family member, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to waste your money, you don't want to waste time, because immigration is definitely going to charge you for all these applications. And if they deny you, they're definitely going to charge you again. So please feel free to give us a call. The phone number is right here on the screen. My name is Attorney Charles Zavala. I'm your immigration lawyer. More than happy to help. We speak English, Spanish. We're here to help you no matter anything you need. Thank you. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your 2025, and we're here to help you no matter what you need. Thanks.